Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to today's presentation of Save Time and Money with TimeTrakGO. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes here for what a few people join, and then we will be ready to start. So just hang with us for just a couple of minutes. Thank you. All right, so we'll just get started here. Go through a few housekeeping items and let other people roll in here. So again, thank you very much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Chris Rice, and I'm the Vice President of Sales for TimeTrakGO. And we are lucky today as we are joined by the world's leading expert in TimeTrakGO. Many of you may have already spoken to him at one point or another, our product manager, Brian Zarowski. We're excited to have all of you here today, and Brian's going to put on a great presentation. But before we jump in, I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete, and we welcome you to revisit the content or share it with any of your friends and colleagues. It makes great entertainment. Even, if you have kids over, pop some popcorn. Everybody wants to learn more about time tracking. We also invite your comments and questions. You'll see there is a Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of a question that you'd like us to answer at any point, just type it in there, and I'll either pose it to Brian during the broadcast, or we'll wait. We have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll hold it for that portion of the event. We do have a great mix of existing TimeTrakGO customers, some folks who are in active trials, some TimeTrakGO Enterprise customers, and others who may have done a trial in the past, or even just some people that are brand new to TimeTrakGO. So it's a really nice mix. So with that, the presentation will be fairly comprehensive. It'll be an overview of TimeTrakGO. But remember, if you want to go into more detail, you can always contact our customer care team as they are available to set up an onboarding or answer questions for you. So they will help you dive in deeper to any of the features that we touch on today. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started here. So what I'm going to do is just take you through a couple of overview of kind of what TimeTrakGO is, who we are, and then we will get into Brian's hands-on demo. So here you see an agenda. So we'll go through some clocking options in our feature manager. And then as I mentioned, Brian will go into the hands-on demo where he'll get into a lot of the different features of TimeTrakGO and go into just a little bit more detail before we get into a Q&A with the questions that you send and some of the questions that you've already sent us. Okay? So just a little bit about us. While TimeTrakGO has only been in the market for about 4 years, TimeTrack Systems has been developing time tracking solutions for over 40 years. We have utilized this experience in building TimeTrakGO. Our mission was to remove the complexity from time tracking and create a simply better solution for employers and employees. This focus on simplicity remains our mission with each and every feature that we add. To do this right, we rely not only on our experience, but also your feedback. We track all customer feature requests and suggestions. While we can't promise that we're going to do everything that you ask for, more often than not, we do. And we take that into consideration and prioritize based on the number of requests we get for each feature. Whoops, too fast. Now, we don't like to really toot our own horn, but we're going to. We're very proud to have earned these accolades from third-party sources based on customer feedback. So what you see here with Capterra, Software Advice, and GetApp, these are reviews that have come in from customers. And with that, we have been ranked best ease of use, best customer support, and category leader for time tracking. We're really excited about this because, as I mentioned in the slide before, our mission is to be simply better. So ease of use is something we really pride ourselves on, and best customer support. We take great pride in the support that we provide, having people here who are answering the phone, answering your chat, who are not only knowledgeable, but just great people. And we're really proud of that. And we do love customer feedback. We're proud to have an overall score of 4.7 out of 5 on Capterra based on customer reviews. And while we strive for 5 stars from every customer, we know that's not realistic. But you can visit our website and you can see these reviews for yourself. And if you want, go ahead and add one as well. We do reach out to many of those who we don't get 5 stars from. And we do find that often the challenge that they have is it's really a product or a training issue versus a functionality issue with TimeTrakGO. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this presentation today, is to get more information out, make sure people understand the product the best they can to get the most use out of it. So with this, we're going to go into some overview of some of the different options that we have in TimeTrakGO. So one of them is the variety of clocking options that we offer, from web browser-based solutions to our mobile app with GPS and the tablet app, which offers facial recognition. TimeTrakGO has a solution for you and your employees, and there's more to come in this area. One thing is, if you get a tablet, there are some great cases out there that you can talk to our team. We'll suggest some that we've tested, and it's a great way to make sure that your tablet is protected and safe in the environment that you put it in. As an administrator, you'll find all of your features in one convenient place, our newly designed Feature Manager. This is where you can access system options, clocking options, and PTO options to configure TimeTrakGO to your specific needs. And this is really where Brian's going to focus today and start here taking you through the different features. So with that, I think you probably heard enough from me, and it's time to get into our live demo. So please don't forget, any questions you have, put them in the Q&A. And now I'm happy to turn it over to Brian Zarowski. Brian, I'm going to stop sharing and please take it away.
All right, thank you, Chris. Again, thank you guys for joining here today. As Chris mentioned, I'm going to take you through TimeTrakGO. Give me 1 minute to share my screen, and we'll get that going shortly here. All right. Chris, are you seeing everything okay?
Yep, I see your screen, Brian.
All right, perfect. So what you guys should see here is the login screen. Every customer who signs up for TimeTrakGO will get a custom login screen. We're just going to go ahead and log in. And since we have a good mix of existing customers, maybe new customers in a 14-day trial, and maybe even long-term customers who've been with us for, a few years, what I'd like to do is maybe take this time to talk about some of the key features that are maybe not, visible right away when you get into TimeTrakGO. So some insider tips, some shortcuts, just some navigation tips of TimeTrakGO. So what everybody should be seeing here on my screen is the TimeTrakGO dashboard. And when you get logged in, it's going to bring you into your current pay period, whether you're weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, we're going to bring you into your current period. Let's just have a look around. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, this is a user group selection. Every user could be assigned into a group, sort of like a department designation, and you could filter your dashboard down to each of those groups. For example, maybe we want to look at the warehouse team. We could see the warehouse guys. Maybe we want to switch over to office. Or again, we have a all user group. And what you can see is a dashboard, the hours, the total hours, everything's getting filtered by that group selection. Another tip up here is going to be the dates. Again, while we default to your current pay period, it's very easy to go back and look at previous weeks. All we need to do is hit the back arrow here. We're looking at the week before and the week before. We also have a date selection window. In this date selection, you could do custom dates. You could go all the way back year to date if you wanted to. You could do a range of dates, which is to say October 1st, maybe through the 18th. And we also offer the ability to do quick date ranges with these buttons on the side. So if you don't even want to think about it, you could come in and say, show me last pay period. And immediately you're viewing that week that you want to see. We're going to go ahead and switch back to the current pay period and just continue looking. Here we could see the total hours insight. The total hours insight that we see here, we could click on it and come in and actually take a look and see a pie chart of the hours, and we could see group detail, and we could even drill down and get some employee detail in that total hours insight. The next insight is our errors insight. It's going to alert you to missing ins, missing outs, absences. And while the current pay period that we're looking at here doesn't have any mistakes that need to be fixed, we could actually go take a look at the previous pay period and see that there is a mistake. There is a missing punch in this pay period. What we're going to do is click right on that errors insight and we get a pop-up. It's going to let us know who it is, the date, and the mistake. So this happened to be Joe Smith had a missing out punch on October 22nd. Not only do we alert you to this, but we allow you to edit that missing punch right from here. So the best way to think of that is if you had, 7 employees or 70 employees, you don't have to go one at a time to go look and see who has a missing in or who has a missing out. We alert you to just those 2 or 3 issues that need attention. And we could come in here and see, yep, he clocked in on Tuesday, October 22nd, and we could adjust this out punch. So again, we could add a manual out to break, back from break, or out, or we also offer quick edit options by clicking right here on the missing out. In this instance, we are using scheduling, and if you notice, we click on the missing out, the system is actually smart enough to know what time the scheduled out time was, and it inserted the 5 p.m. out punch. All we need to do is save it to lock in the edits, and we could go back to the errors. There are no more issues that need to be resolved, and we could see that with the smiley face here. So again, the dashboard is this overview of everything that's going on in the system. The next insight is the system notifications. Here we could see a time off request, and we could click right on that time off request. We could see there's a pending time off request for Joe Smith. We're going to let you know if we're tracking the available and committed time, like the PTO balances. We could let you know how much sick is available and how much vacation PTO is available. We could see the date and the time of that request, and with one click, we could approve that time off request. That request will show up on the employee time card, whether it's this week, or next month. It's automatically going to be on that time card because it's been approved. And let's just round out the dashboard. Down here, we have our employee hours. Right here, we have a shortcut to downloading a Microsoft Excel report. So exactly what you see on the screen here, all the employees, we click download Excel report, and it's going to download a Microsoft Excel report that is identical to what we see here in the employee hours. We also have a convenient in-out board. It's going to list your employees, who's in, who's out, and it updates in near real time. If one of your employees were to clock in right now within a few seconds, we would see that name go over to the inside. We also have a recent punches. And again, we're not seeing any recent punches because we're looking at the previous week. But if we come into the current pay period, we're going to see recent punches. It's a sequential listing of your first person in the door and the last one to clock in or clock out. So we could go all the way down to see who came in, and it would even cross over into yesterday, the guys who maybe clocked out late last night, and then the ones who started to clock in this morning. It's going to highlight somebody who came in early, somebody who's absent. All of that information is going to be right here on this in-out board. We could also see here that Mark Jones came in late. That's a reason for that pinkish red shading. And we could see Alice Thomas here. She's out today and she's using 8 hours of sick time. So this dashboard is a great overview of everything that's going on in TimeTrakGO. We're going to just continue with a few more menu options here, just so I don't overlook anything. We do have a web-based time clock option called Go Clock. Go clock is ideal for those employees working from home or who have access to a computer. We have our time and hours area. This is a big area. This is where your employee time cards are kept. So let's just have a look around time and hours. Here we're looking at John Doe, which is actually me, the administrator, who's a salary employee. We could see that this person's also been clocking in and out. We have 8 hours salary, we have 40 hours projected, and we're not scheduled for anything. We don't necessarily have a schedule here. In this time and hours, all of these insights are clickable. You could click on each one of these insights to gain additional information. And we can navigate from person to person either by this pick list of names, we could search for names, or we could even go one person at a time. So this is a very, very good example of a feature that we have called projected hours. Now, it is only Tuesday, and this employee clocked in Monday at 7 a.m., went home at 3:30, but today they clocked in a little bit early. So this morning they came in early, and our system is already picking up on that. We know that if they work until their scheduled out time today and then continue to work their schedule the remainder of the week, it's going to predict that this person's going to hit overtime. So we're forecasting that overtime way before it even happens. Here we are only Tuesday, and we could kind of see that this person might have some upcoming overtime. From here, editing and reviewing and fixing punches with our graphical time cards, very simple, very easy to do. We could see that when we mouse over the puzzle pieces, the times light up. If we needed to modify a punch time, we could do a quick type over editing. So on this day, we adjusted the in punch, which actually adjusted the projected hours. And we could also quickly undo that with the undo button. We could see that we could come in and we could delete punches using a trash can. Again, we're just going to undo that, put it back to the way it was. And we could edit the punch by hitting the edit pencil. We got a simple punch edit window. We could modify the punch type, changing a in to an out or an out to an in. We can modify the pay date, the punch date, the time, and we could even enter a comment on the punch, and we're going to see that represented as a comment indicator up here. So that is a time and hours for somebody here. We're going to go back to another employee, and that employee happens to be configured as a salary non-exempt. And we're actually going to go look at the previous week. This is a relatively new feature. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper here, but this is a salary non-exempt, one of our newest features. And what we could do on your salary non-exempt is we could track their salary hours. We could let you know when that non-exempt person is over 40 hours and maybe eligible for overtime, but we could also let you know when that salary non-exempt maybe didn't fulfill the 40-hour work week. So in this example, on the salary person that we're looking at here, we have them set up as a guaranteed 40-hour week salary person. They clock in, they clock out all week long. And what we could see is on a day where that person left early, the system had to supplement that day with 1 hour of not worked. Now we could configure that if we just want to add it back in as salary, or if we want to break it down as salary not worked and salary. So for a non-exempt person, we could see the overtime, we could see the under 40, and we could see the salary hours. And it actually updates in real time, which is pretty nice. So if the employee left early on Monday, but let's say they maybe stayed a little bit later on Tuesday, we're going to see that the adjustment gets reduced by half. So now the system only had to supplement a half hour of that salary not worked pay code. Now, likewise, if the employee stayed a little bit later on another day, here we could see that the total for the week has shifted. So they left a little early on Monday, left a little bit late on Tuesday, but then stayed later on Wednesday. And now that salary non-exempt person, we could see that we have our 40 salary and 0.25 overtime. We could undo that. The system is also smart enough to take into consideration vacation or sick time as well. It's always going to justify to that 40-hour week. And again, we're looking at some additional employees here. You can navigate through the time cards one at a time. And another great, feature that we have that is often overlooked is our group mode. So in time and hours, we could switch to group mode. What group mode will do is group your employees by those groups we talked about earlier: admin, office, warehouse, or all. And you could see that by payday, we're listing all of the employees and what they worked. So it's going to show you Monday, all the employees, Tuesday, all the employees, and each day of the week. So if there was a mistake, if there was a missing punch, if there was somebody who was absent, it really highlights it here on time and hours. We're just going to switch back to single user mode, and we will go back to John Doe. The PTO available option up here is also a relatively new feature within the last 12 to 16 months, and we can actually accrue the vacation time. This insight, we could click on it to get additional detail, such as the taken, committed, and available PTO balances. So in here, what we could do is click on the details window right here to get the PTO detail to sick. We could see it's kind of like a check register. We have the opening balance, we have our yearly allotment of 24 hours of sick, and then we do have our taken hours where we could see January 29th, September 23rd, and 24th, leaving us with 4 hours balance. So that is a PTO available. So with that in mind, that is just a quick overview of our dashboard and time and hours area. What we're here today to really dig into is going to be Feature Manager. This was completely revamped a few weeks ago, and we've now grouped your features together. So we could see that we have our system options, we have our clocking options, and we have our PTO options. We're going to go right through these features one at a time, just kind of talking about them and what they offer. The newest one being pay policies and overtime. We could come into the pay policies and overtime. We could see this is where we have our hourly, salary exempt, and salary non-exempt. We can now create additional pay policies, and pay policies govern overtime and meal breaks. So something we could do are two different pay policies, maybe a 30-minute automatic meal break and a 60-minute clocked meal break. Or we could create different overtime scenarios, such as a California overtime and a 40-hour to overtime for somebody who maybe has employees in California, but maybe also in another state where the overtime is just standard 40 hours to overtime. We could take a look at some of these. Let's go and look specifically at the salary non-exempt. Again, if you're tracking your salary non-exempt, we could see that we're set up to calculate weekly overtime after 40 hours a week. We could see the rule configuration for this. The default pay code, it's going to be salary. The default overtime code is overtime. We could see it's an auto pay 8 hours per day, Monday through Friday. And this is the option to show clocked and auto-generated hours separately. That's what allows us to break out the hours at the end of the week to show you if they're under 40 and we had to supplement them. So if their clocked hours were only 39, we had to add 1 hour in. We're going to see it right here as the not worked pay code. If we turn that off, then it's just going to be guaranteed the 40 hours of salary. And then up here is a break configuration per pay policy, where the meal break is either going to be the auto deduct, clocked, or none. And if an employee is assigned a schedule, the schedule does override the pay policy break settings. So you could have an additional schedule that governs breaks as well. So that is our pay policies and overtime. Again, we could handle multiple different salary configurations if we needed to do 4 10-hour days or 5 8-hour days, multiple overtime configurations, all up in our pay policies and overtime. Pay code management, very simple, very easy. This is where we could go and add additional pay codes. For example, let's say we needed to add a floating holiday. We could give it a description or a pay code name called float. We're going to give it a description, floating holiday. and then maybe we just want to abbreviate it as FLT. We could pick a color, and the color is going to be how it's represented on the dashboard, how it's represented throughout the product. So we're going to pick a bluish color here for floating holiday. Another new option we've added within the past year is accumulate towards overtime. Does that floating holiday count towards a weekly overtime? Yes or no? Do we want to enable that for PTO tracking? Yes or no? And what that would mean is, do we want to track it on a calendar? Do we want to allow it potentially to be requested off? And do we want to track balances of this floating holiday? So we're going to say yes on that. And then the hidden option would be when you no longer use a pay code and you don't want to have access to that pay code, you just want to kind of disable it, we can mark a pay code as hidden. So let's just add floating holiday. Again, you could see you could add jury duty, you could add floating holiday, school hours, anything like that that you need to keep track of, you could add additional pay codes into the system. The next feature up here is our employee scheduling. Although we've had scheduling from day one, we've recently enhanced scheduling dramatically. We moved it out of the company settings into Feature Manager. What we're going to do is take a look at the settings of employee schedules. We could see we have a 7 to 3:30 and we have a 8 a.m. to 5. What we've done is simplified how to add a schedule. So if we click Add Schedule, we're going to maybe create a 6 a.m. to maybe 2:30 p.m. with a 30-minute lunch schedule. What we've added is a quick add option, which really makes this super easy to do. If we say quick add yes, we could simply click the days of the week that it's going to repeat. For example, it's Monday through Friday. We could set the start time as 6 a.m., set the stop time as 2:30 p.m. and we could configure the meal break right here. So we're going to do a auto break 30 minutes and we're just going to say that happens after 5 hours worked. If we hit save, you could see that our schedule is automatically generated based on what we've done. You know, the majority of schedules kind of repeat for the most part Monday through Friday. This really makes it simple to add. We could see the schedules here, the break settings are up here. And another new feature that we've added is right over here. We're going to summarize the schedule. It's our 6 to 2:30 with a 30-minute lunch. It's about a 40-hour a week schedule with a 30-minute auto break deduction. But what we could do is assign it here. So if you're creating a schedule with a specific employee in mind, we could come in here and assign it directly to that employee. We could also do a one-time assignment to a group. So everybody in the warehouse would automatically get that schedule right now because we're making that change. And that's our new employee scheduling feature. We also have our payroll integrations. Again, we've had these for quite some time, but they're now up under a system option here. So if we activate our integrations, it's asking us here, do we want to enable pass to payroll for all users? Meaning when we create an integration to QuickBooks or ADP, should everybody go? We're going to say yes to that, but we do have a user by user override. Here we could just see some of the integrations that we offer: Paychex, Gusto, ADP Workforce Now, Paylocity, Heartland, Sage 50. We have our TimeTrakGO standard export. We have MPay, and we also have QuickBooks Desktop. And again, you know, we're not going to go over each of these integrations. If anybody has additional questions following the webinar today, feel free to reach out to our customer care team. We're happy to help answer those. We're just going to go back, and that's our integrations feature. So looking now at clocking options, we have our mobile time clock. Looking at that, there are options here. So we do have some existing customers on the phone here today. So one thing I want to point out is, although we offer a mobile app, it's much more than just clocking in and clocking out. So if you're an existing customer, maybe using a iPad or a tablet with facial recognition, the mobile app you could offer to your employees as a way for them to view their time card, see how much PTO time they have available, maybe even request a PTO or vacation day from the mobile app. So what this allows us to do on a global setting here is disable the time clock. So the mobile app, they would not be allowed to clock in and out, but they could request vacation time or look at their punches or look at their time card and look at their hours. We also have options on our mobile app to enforce GPS. If they are using it as a time clock, we would require to know their location. We have options to turn off the ability for them to view their punches and hours, and we have options to enable or disable time off center, which is the ability to request a vacation day or maybe look and see how many sick hours you have remaining. So that is our mobile app. The tablet time clock settings are right here. You can see that you could have multiple tablets connected, multiple iPads. You can mix and match. You could add a iPad and an Android tablet. And we do have options here for facial recognition or just pin entry. All of that's done through the tablet time clock feature. Adding a new device is easy. We just hit activate new device. The tablet itself, when it's connected up to your system, generates an activation code. We just enter the activation code and it's connected within minutes. So that's our tablet time clock. We also offer a web-based browser kiosk. Simply going in and activating that, the link is available right up here at the top, and it's going to be a virtual time clock on a computer. Employees simply find their name, they could enter a PIN number, and then quickly clock in or clock out right from the computer web browser. And again, that's our browser time clock option. These features, it's great if you're going to use them. If you're not going to use them, you'll just want to go ahead and disable those features. So again, activate turns it on, disable disables it. So if you didn't want your employees clocking in and out from a web browser, you could simply disable that feature. We do have our GeoFence app security, which works hand in hand with our mobile app. GeoFence, we could activate the feature, and it's as easy as adding geofence locations. So we could come in here and we could say we're going to add the main office, and it wants the address. We're going to just give it an address, and it actually starts predicting as you're typing, and it's going to find the location that you're trying to add. It's going to center the map right on the address, and for the geofence, you simply click on the map, and then you could adjust your radius for how big or how small you want that geofence location to be. You then simply add it to the list, and it added the geofence location. We could see that we could edit that geofence location, and maybe we made that radius too big. We want to tighten it down. We could reduce it right here and bring it right to the building. We could also switch that to a satellite view. If we wanted to see a street view, we go back into street view here. You could also assign specific users to the geofence. So the default is all users, but if you wanted just one person or one group of individuals to use that geofence, we come in here and pick and choose. Again, we could say only the office people, and it's going to automatically select them, or we could pick and choose from the listing on the left. We hit accept, and then we have a geofence set up for those specific users. Again, you could add multiple geofences, multiple locations here, and we also have an option, should a user be allowed to clock in if they're not within that geofence? We have no, but we also have a yes and tag. Yes and tag could be used at the early onset of TimeTrakGO if you're just getting up and going. Yes and tag will give them a warning if they're not in the geofence location, but it won't prevent them from clocking in. We have a report that you could see which ones are inside the fence or outside the fence. Or if you don't want to allow that, you just say, no, they are not allowed to clock in and out, and it's a hard cutoff. They would not be allowed to clock in when they're outside the geofenced location. And again, the geofence works hand in hand with our mobile app. So we could disable that. We do have another security option called device authorization. Device authorization is a whitelisting of either specific computers or IP addresses of those who could clock in and out either from the Go clock that we mentioned earlier or from our browser-based time clock. So it works with our browser clocking options. So the way device authorization would work, if there's one computer at the office that you want everybody to use, you whitelist that one computer and only that one computer. That way, they can't get into the web page from home and they can't get into it from a mobile phone. Likewise, you could whitelist an IP address, which would typically be every computer at the location. So if you, again, maybe had a small office and you want them to use every computer in the building, but nothing when they're gone, you could do device authorization and request and approve specific devices. And that's our device authorization feature. Next, we're going to start looking at some of the PTO options. So for PTO, we have scheduled holidays, and we recently revamped scheduled holidays as well. Previously, scheduled holidays were company-wide. Everybody had to have the same hours and the same dates. We've now revamped it to, we're going to activate it, and it's asking us a question: should we enable holidays for all users? We're going to say yes. And what we could see in here is we now have holiday codes. Holiday codes, you could create additional holiday codes. For example, hourly, maybe we wanted to create a part-time. So let's actually do that. We're going to create a holiday rule called part-time 4 hours. And the way that works is it has its own listing of dates. So if we were to add, say, Thanksgiving as a holiday, we could come in here, go to the calendar. We're going to do November 28th. We could do Thanksgiving Day, and we could say 4 hours. We add that. So now our part-timers, anybody who's assigned this holiday code, is going to be part-time 4 hours holiday, and they have their listing of dates. And the hourly holidays would maybe be our full-time employees who get 8 hours. So we could independently set the number of hours and the dates. There's also additional settings added this year for minimum seniority. So if your employees do not get the paid holiday until they've been there maybe 90 days seniority, we could go in and turn that feature on. Minimum seniority will be 90 days, and the system would not generate that automatic holiday unless it's been 90 days since their hire date. That way, somebody hired the week before Thanksgiving, they wouldn't necessarily get it, but who knows, maybe by New Year's Day, they'd be eligible for that holiday. We also have another feature for the worked pay code. We've added that recently as well. You could choose when they do come in and work on a holiday, what pay code should we designate those hours as? Very, very typical configuration would be overtime. So if an employee comes in and works on a paid holiday, they could get overtime. We've also allowed 0-hour holidays. So what that would mean is if you're a company who maybe you don't pay the benefit of the holiday to your part-timers, like they're not getting 4 hours of holiday for not coming to work, maybe your part-timers would get overtime simply for working on a designated holiday. We could do that by setting the number of hours to pay to 0 hours to pay, but then the setting for the worked pay code would become overtime. So again, in that scenario, they don't get that benefit of the holiday like a full-time, but we could pay them overtime when they clock in and out on a holiday. So that is kind of our newest features for holidays. Again, you could add as many holiday rules as needed. Again, designating your full-time, part-time. Maybe you add part-time 4 hours, part-time 6 hours. You could add additional holiday codes in here. And we're just going to go back to Feature Manager. Another feature is time off requests. And it's much more than just the ability to, have an employee request a vacation day and you approve it later. It actually gives us a menu option over here called Time Off Center. So when the time off requests are enabled, we get a time off center menu option over here. And this calendar is showing you all of the PTO time. And not only the PTO that's been requested and approved or denied, but even manual entries of pay codes that we designated as tracking for PTO. And what I mean by that is something like jury duty. Maybe jury duty is not a company holiday or a company pay code that you want them requesting off. It's jury duty, that they're not putting in a time off request for jury duty, but we can mark jury duty as a PTO code, and then it appears on the time off calendar. So it would include, again, the manual entries of vacation, sick. It would include the time off requests for vacation and sick, and any other manual entry of a pay code, even if it's not part of the request system. Again, you could go through the calendar, going back into history, going forward into the future. And like we mentioned elsewhere, you do have the ability to filter by group. If you want to look at office or warehouse, you could see that up here. You could approve time from here, and employees could even request time from here as well. We're going to head over to the feature manager one last time and take a look at PTO accrual tracking. In here, the PTO accrual tracking, if you remember, is what we saw up here, where we're keeping track of the available, committed, and taken PTO balances. It's very easy to configure. We could go in and take a look at some of these settings. Each of the pay codes are listed here, and whether or not they're going to be tracked with an available balance and keeping track of, again, the available, committed, and taken. So what we could see here is that we are wanting to track vacation and sick as a PTO bucket of time. Looking down below, you could see that this listing could either be all employees or a list of employees one at a time. We're just going to stick with the single user view. We could see maybe we're going to go to, let's go to Chloe. And looking at Chloe, we could see she's assigned the 80-hour vacation rule and the 24 hours of sick rule. Now you could create multiple earning rules. Again, maybe there's part-time ways for how part-timers earn sick. Maybe full-timers get a different earning or a different allotment of sick. You could create different earning rules and you assign them to the employees. We also have a manual option. Manual, instead of us automatically earning the PTO time, manual just allows you to set a opening balance. If you want to give that person 120 hours, you just manually type in that they have 120 hours. If you set them on a rule such as 80 hours vacation, you could see that it's going to earn 80 hours of vacation. Rules are relatively easy to create. They're done up here. You could see that this is where we keep the rules. We have our 24 hours of sick, we have our 80 hours of vacation, we have a monthly sick and a pay period sick. Adding rules are pretty simple. They're either fiscal or anniversary. How they update could be either yearly, monthly, pay period. You could prevent negatives, which would prevent the employee from requesting time if they don't have any available. It would also prevent a supervisor from approving a day that might cause them to go negative. All of that is done. Another key feature that we could offer, built right into the accrual rules, is the ability to do accrual levels. So if you have a company policy that gives overtime, year 1 and 2 is only 40 hours of vacation. Year 3 to 5 is 80 hours. If you have 5 or more years, maybe it's 120 hours of vacation. That could all be done in one rule. All we need to do is add levels. So we designate the length of employment and then how many hours they earn. So again, from year 1 to 2, we could say 40, 3 to 5 is 80, and then anything over 5 years would be 120 hours of vacation. And when that employee hits that 5th year, it just automatically replenishes at that next tier. So you don't have to remember to go in, just because somebody is graduating from 4 to 5 years anniversary within the company. So with that, we are coming up on about 2:45 here. I think we covered just about every single feature that we offer. I do see that there might be a few questions coming in. So
Yeah,
Chris, I could turn it over to you.
got it. I'm pretty sure you did that all in one breath, Brian. I'm
I
not
might have.
sure.
I might have.
That was very impressive. Um, Yeah, and actually, I'm going to leave your screen up, Brian, because a couple of the questions that have come in, you may want to just do a quick overview on them. But before I get to those, we did have a few questions that came in prior to the event. We asked some folks for some questions. One is, how do you turn off the schedule for one day for a user, Brian?
Got it. So we could do that through our time and hours area. So again, we didn't really touch on this earlier, but we do have view options over here. We have our time card view, we have our time card and schedule. Now this employee doesn't have a schedule. Let's go find Chloe. So looking at Chloe, she does have a schedule. So her punches are aligning to her schedule. We could see that if we were to modify a punch time and just make this uh, 8:08, we could see it's going to automatically tag that as a late into her schedule. So these buttons up here configure if you're viewing the time card only, if you're viewing the schedule only, time card or schedule, or even a hybrid mode that kind of combines both into one. So to answer that question, if we wanted to turn off a schedule, for example, if we know that Chloe is not working on Wednesday, you have to make sure that schedule view is enabled and you could just turn off the schedule on that one day. So when she clocks in, or I'm sorry, she won't clock in that day, but we won't generate an absent because her schedule is turned off on that day. It's also pretty important to note here that we do actually have some built-in AI, if you would, where if you're adding hours on a future day, if the hours amount that you're entering, such as an 8-hour vacation day, if the number of hours you're entering is equal to the schedule that day, we automatically turn that day off. So in this instance, we put an 8-hour vacation day in, so we turn that day off because they're likely not coming in on that day that there's an 8-hour vacation day.
Okay, great. Another question is, can you have more than one device connected to the kiosk tablet app?
Yes, absolutely. So if we head back over to Feature Manager, we could see our tablet time clock app up here. If we go to settings, we can actually see in this demo system, I actually have had three. So you could connect multiple tablets. You could even mix and match. Again, I think I mentioned earlier, an iPad and an Android tablet, both could be connected to the same system.
Okay. Now, one on geofencing. Are you able to use geofencing for a different location each day?
Yes, you could do that. So under the geofence, you could either add a whole bunch of geofences. I guess it all depends on the application. So you could create 15, 20, 30 different user or geofences. Maybe there are job sites that you routinely visit, and you could put them all in the system at once and they're all active at once. If your job site maybe moves from day to day, you would have to go in prior to the employees clocking in that day and just add a new geofence. You could delete old ones. Again, if it was a geofence that was only valid on Monday, and here we are Tuesday, you could go in, delete the Monday geofence. It won't necessarily matter so much. However, looking at reports, that geofence that you deleted, your Monday punches might appear that they're not in a geofence. Now, at the time they clocked in, they were, but if you later go in and delete that geofence, historical reports are going to reflect that they're no longer in a geofence. But rest assured, that day when they clocked in, they were within that fence. So it might be best to not delete them and just add it. I think it all depends on the application.
Okay. And with anything that comes up, just if you have any questions or want to dive into it further, feel free to just reach out to our customer care and we'll help you with that. Um, Another question coming on PTO request, Brian. Can an admin put in an employee's PTO request?
So an admin can't necessarily go in and put in a request. That's really meant for the employee to go in and put in a request. But just as I did minutes ago, if there was an employee such as Chloe who maybe wanted next week off, maybe Monday for vacation day, an admin could go in to the time card. They could add hours into the future here. We're November 4th. We're going to do 8 hours of vacation. So while they can't necessarily put that time off request in, they could still put the time off entry in, but it eliminates the need for the request and the approval that has to follow a request.
Okay. And here's a question, and Michelle, I'm trying to get this correct. Time is currently rounding up to, and the boss said that they'd like to round it to 1. How do they change that with the rounding?
So rounding is found in the company's setup area. under settings. Punch rounding is a top option here. You could see that we have, I don't want to round hours, or I do not want to round hours. That would be minute to minute. So the minute they clock in until the minute they clock out is what it would pay them from. We have a 3 minute, which would round their totals at the end of the week to like 39.05, 39.1, 39.15. We have a 6 minute accounting unit, which would round to the 10th of an hour. So again, at the end of the week, they might have 39.1, 39.2, and then your 15-minute rounding, that would give you the quarter hour rounding, which is very, very common. So at the end of the week, 39 and a quarter, 39 and a half. Now, the rounding setting also would inherit a grace period. So 15-minute rounding would give that 7-minute grace window prior to clocking in. So if you're doing 15-minute rounding, somebody punches in, say 5 minutes early, it's just going to round up to 7 a.m. Likewise, if they punch in 4 minutes late, it might round down to 7. It's important to note that our system does capture actual punch times. Only the total hours for the day would be rounded on that. So if you're currently, depending upon how that current punch rounding is set up, if you needed to try it as minute to minute or 3 minute, you could make that change here.
Okay. And just go back just on that on the PTO with the admin putting in the PTO. If someone calls in sick, it'd be the same process to put in a sick day. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. It's any of the pay codes that we've created in the pay codes area. You could go in, like, let's say it was just today here for Mark Jones. If Mark Jones called off sick today on Tuesday, October 29th, we could come into the time card. We could add hours. And then you could see that the pay code selection allows you to pick overtime, holiday, vacation, sick, jury duty, even that floating holiday that we created earlier. You could just, maybe they're going to use 8 hours of floating holiday today. So whether it
Yep.
was sick, vacation, anything like that, the manual entry to the time card is a way to go.
Okay. Does TimeTrakGO have the ability to set up different permissions for companies with multiple departments and managers so that a manager can oversee their own department but not view other departments?
Very good question. Yes, over in our users area, for example, we have somebody right here, Joe Manager, who is configured as a supervisor. We didn't really touch on the users section, but when adding somebody new, the default role would be an employee, and employees are really, sandboxed to only viewing their own time card and their own hours. An admin can see everybody in the company, but we do have a supervisor role. So the supervisor role allows you to assign users to that supervisor. Now, again, you could assign just a simple pick list. If it's a one-off type of a configuration, that Joe Manager here could see Mark, Chloe, and Alice, we could simply assign them that way. We could also do assignments by group. So if the manager was the warehouse manager, all we need to do is assign the group of warehouse. The benefit of doing the group assignment mixed in here with your supervisors would be that way when you get a new hire in the warehouse, all you need to do is designate that employee as a warehouse employee, and the supervisor would automatically get that new hire. So pick list of names is a one-off. Or you go in and assign by group, and it just automatically works. The next time you add somebody to the warehouse, the supervisor gets them.
Fantastic. We've got just a couple more questions here as we're wrapping up the hour. Can you add geofencing based on visual or GPS location? For example, like a field where there may not be a street address.
Yes. Yep. So what we could do if we go back into Feature Manager, go back into our geofence, let's actually delete the one we added earlier. So if we add a new geofence, down here, it's going to try to center around where you are, where you're at, where you're located. So for me, this happened to open up not far from my location that I'm at now. But you could see, we could zoom all the way out. We could go all the way out to a state or a country level here and start zooming in. So if we wanted to, we could switch to satellite view. And if we wanted to set up a geofence over some farm field in Iowa or wherever that is, we could do that. So you just have to kind of know where you're looking at on the map and just zoom in, zoom out until you find that location.
Okay. And then what about earning comp time? Is that something that can be set up?
Comp time could be set up. That is a little bit of an advanced feature. I don't really have time to get into exactly how that would work, but it's a combination of our pay policies and our PTO accrual. Essentially, we could set up a pay policy that the overtime code is not necessarily overtime, it's comp time earned. And then what we would do is we could set up a PTO rule that would then bank any of that quote unquote overtime, anything over 40, that comp time earned would go into a comp time bank. So again, it's a combination of pay policies and accrual earning rules. And the way that works is we have a rule that is a hourly rule. When you create a hourly rule, it allows you to pick which pay codes then count towards that rule. So what are the worked pay codes and how they earn? So it would likely be a one-to-one earning of anything over 40, and we would bank them as comp. So then this week they do 41 hours. They have 1 hour in the comp bank. Maybe 2, 3 weeks from now, they could draw on that bank and use that 1 hour of comp time.
Okay, fantastic. And the last question I have here is, how does the annual plan work with adding and deleting users? So if you're an annual prepay customer, how does that work if they're, growing, or if they have to maybe let go of a few workers during the year?
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So the way the annual plan works, it's a annual prepay, and think of it like purchasing credits. I like to explain it as credits. So today, maybe you have only 10 users and you want to sign up for the year. So you're essentially purchasing 120 credits. So this month you use 10, you got 110 remaining. Next month you might use 9, you're going to carry that one over. So each month we're only deducting from your balance your actual usage. A great example that I like to give everybody is way back at the beginning of COVID, we had so many customers had to immediately downsize. And those customers archived those employees and they found themselves getting 16, 17, 18 months on the annual. And they were pleasantly surprised to see that, they signed up for a year and they got way more than the year because they downsized. Now,
Got it.
likewise, if you sign up with 20 employees today and immediately maybe next month you doubled to 20, then you would use up your annual, credit that much sooner. So you might only get 6 months. But the way we do it is at the end of the 14-day trial, if you have 10 active, it's going to estimate 10 for the 12 months. So it would be a bank of that many users.
Got it. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the top of the hour just about. So thank you everyone who joined us for today's webinar. Brian, again, thank you for sharing your insight and expertise. You're fantastic. If you have any additional questions or would like to connect directly with the TimeTrakGO team, please visit our website at www.timetrakgo.com. That's TimeTrakGO.com. Or feel free to give us a call and talk to one of our friendly staff members at 888-321-9922. And also be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X. We're anywhere. So you never miss a Dad Joke Wednesday, which is coming up tomorrow. So make sure you follow us before then so you don't miss a joke. Thank you again for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye bye.